This epidemic of gun violence knows no boundaries, knows no limits of any kind. And when this happens, people are quick to say that they offer their thoughts and prayers. That's not enough. How many people have to die before we actually act? Before we come together as a nation?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is Sheryl Attkinson, Emmy Award-winning journalist, host of Full Measure with Sheryl Attkinson, and author of the book Stonewalled. Sheryl, Hillary with some details on her gun plan, and basically she said she would take executive action, and I'm still afraid Obama's going to do that. She didn't say what executive action. She also said she wants to make the gun manufacturers culpable for lawsuits, even in mass murders, and she said more background checks, which wouldn't have stopped any of these mass killings.
Well, that was one of my first questions. I'm not a student of gun law and gun policy. I haven't, covered that as a big issue, and I really don't have a position, that I think is the answer or one way or the other on gun laws. But I keep asking, when people are proposing new laws, what would that do, or how would it affect the question at issue, the controversy at hand? And so far, I don't see the answer. If we're going to do a law in response to a shooting, it seems like it should apply to that particular shooting if that's the impetus, and I don't see how some of these proposals do.
Right. Well, let's talk about the shooting, and let's talk about something that continues to not be acknowledged by this president. And, if it were the other way around, and I had Mike Huckabee on the other day, and he certainly agreed, if the shooter said, "Are you a Muslim?" and if they said yes, he shot him in the head, and if they said no, he shot him in the leg, Obama would have been out there in about 30 seconds. He still hasn't talked about the targeting of Christians by this shooter.
Well, there's no doubt about that. There's what I call the substitution game that I like to play when circumstances are similar but treated differently, and certainly that's the case time and time again. If you think it's an issue when someone is targeted for their religion, if they're Muslim, then certainly it should also be an issue when they're targeted for their religion when they're Christian, and yet those two circumstances are often treated much differently.
Something else that's not being talked about, this shooter, the media seems to be calling him either mixed race or white or not calling him anything. And just for the record, doesn't mixed race, just like Obama's mixed race, does that not qualify you to be called African American?
Well, I'm not an expert, I'm not even an expert on this case, but it was my understanding that he is half one race and half another, so I guess that's mixed race. But people do choose, again, when they want to term somebody of mixed race one or the other depending on their needs. That happens, or their purposes or agenda. And in this case, they've described him one way when I think he could probably be described another.
Yeah, so he could just as easily be described as black, you believe?
Well, I'm not an expert in covering this particular case, but the way I do look at the media coverage of it, and the media tends to cherry pick circumstances and facts at times that fits one narrative or agenda and leave out facts that don't suit it.
All right, let's go back to Hillary for a second here. Congressman McCarthy made a blunder, which he shouldn't have said what he said. He obviously, I don't know if he meant it or not. So many times they take us a little snippet and they blow it up, but it was a dumb thing for him to say that they're bringing down Hillary's poll numbers because of the Benghazi Select Committee, etc. And here's what Hillary said today.
Look at the situation they chose to exploit, to go after me for political reasons. The death of 4 Americans in Benghazi. I knew the ambassador. I identified him. I asked him to go there. I asked the president to nominate him. There have been 7 investigations led mostly by Republicans in the Congress, and they were nonpartisan, and they reached conclusions that, first of all, I and nobody did anything wrong, but there were changes we could make. This committee was set up, as they have admitted, for the purpose of making a partisan political issue out of the deaths of 4 Americans.
This is what they're calling on Judge Hillary turns angry.
Well, I think in general, when experience teaches us, when you see a persona from Hillary Clinton, it's because Media Matters or one of her consultants has advised her it's the prudent thing to do. I'm not sure there was groundswell, authentic anger there, or just something she wanted to portray. She's incorrect when she characterized the investigations. No investigation had fully looked at all of the circumstances. They were very much compartmentalized. Many of them did find all kinds of wrongdoing and inconsistencies and stories from the administration from the outset versus today. None of them have looked deeply at the executive branch action. So there's all kinds of things. But what worries her most is, my information shows, she knows from her internal polling that most Americans, unlike their attempt to portray this as a phony Republican scandal, that most Americans believe this is a legitimate issue, Benghazi and her emails. That's very concerning to her campaign, and they feel like they really have to come up swinging about that.
Let me ask you something totally unrelated. Did you see the Saturday Night Live Saturday night?
I didn't. I only saw a couple. I mean, I didn't even see an entire clip. I just saw a little piece of the clip.
Because what bothered me was, and this is totally out of left field, the Trumps, they had a parody of the Trumps opening up the whole show, and he's sitting next to his, supposed to be his wife, and he says, you might think that this is another bangable daughter of mine, but it's not. It's my wife. And I just, they never would say that, either bangable or unbangable or anything else about Chelsea. And Trump has no problem with it, apparently. He said he loved it, but to me, it just struck me the second they said it. I could never hear them saying that about, a Democrat's daughter.
No, and they wouldn't say that about President Obama's wife or daughter, nor should they, in my view. But, it's the substitution game, different treatment of different people depending on the agenda at hand. And I wanted to say one thing about Kevin McCarthy that I found somewhat ironic. He is, in a sense, taking credit, whether he should have or not, taking credit for the formation of the Benghazi Committee and the research that it's done. And in fact, my information has said all along that Boehner, that leadership was against that, stood in the way of, blocked the formation of, was really the reason this committee didn't get going sooner when the evidence was fresh. And the idea that now, kind of after the fact, when it's turned up some very real information, it's almost as if he's trying to dance in and take credit for something that I don't think they fully supported, at least until way late in the game.
Do you think that he's going to be the speaker?
I don't know enough about politics to say yes or no on that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I hear both ways.
Oh, well, now you get a demerit and you're never coming back. Hey, Sheryl, it was great to talk to you. Good luck with the show Full Measure. Where could folks see that?
You can go to fullmeasure.news right now and see the replay, but we're on 170 Sinclair, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates nationwide. We have a listing of stations you can find on various pages, or if you Google it, but fullmeasure.news will have the replays and the live stream every week.
Great. Great to talk to you. Good luck with that. You deserve it.
Thank you so much.
All right, Sheryl Attkinson, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, the son of Billy Graham, and the author, Billy Graham is the author of a great new book, Where I Am, and Franklin Graham will be here to talk about that and his father's life. Don't go away.